It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
SKOR North Twins Show, an extra innings episode here on the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel. There's AJ Fredrickson, also has been hibernating for the last 4 or 5 months. He's now back on an extra innings episode of the Twins Show. AJ, I don't think we've talked since probably September with you on the Twins Show. It's been a while.
It's been a while. The last time we talked, I don't think I could watch the Twins on broadcast television. That's how long it's been.
That's right. And shameless self-plug. Subscribe to Twins TV. At least that's what I did to watch Twins games this year. Hey, you can also subscribe to the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel here as well. Appreciate everyone that subscribed in February. We had a nice little surplus of subs. So if you haven't done so already, hit that like button and the subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel for everything spring training related. We're about, little less than 4 weeks from opening day in St. Louis. I'll be in attendance for that, so we'll have some podcasts live from Busch Stadium. Have never been to Busch. Have you been to Busch, Age?
No, it's on my list as a guy who kind of grew up with the Cubs Twins interleague fandom. It's on my list. I haven't necessarily gone just because, frankly, the town I find extremely boring. But it's as a guy who loves ballparks and the uniqueness, it's one of those it's on a list to check off, and it's relatively close too. So
yeah, I've never been to St. Louis. I've been to the airport. I don't think that really counts. And my wife's went to college near there at Mizzou, and she said similar things about St. Louis. I'm excited to go. Should be a blast. To your point, I'm there for the ballpark, and then any other extracurricular fun I have, I'll let you know and gladly report back here. So Age is rocking that Chicago Cubs hat, as you see, the Cubbies hat from spring training last year. And I want to get into a topic here that we've discussed it almost honestly going back like a year ago on the SKOR North Twins Show. We even touched on it on a full Twins Show with Mackie and Judd last Thursday, which you can find. And it's this idea that Matt Wallner is your opening day leadoff hitter. So he's been getting a ton of run in spring training as the leadoff hitter, and Rocco touched on it. This is from The Athletic, too. Aaron Gleeman kind of wrote about some of this, too. You can find that at The Athletic. He said, quote, Wallner is certainly a candidate to hit up there, and for a guy who hasn't really done that role, I want to give him the opportunities in spring training to gain some comfort, so it gives us the option to do it when the season starts. It's not traditional, as in his profile, but if he does it, I think it has a chance to be really effective. And then the biggest reason I want AJ on here is because a comp for unconventional leadoff hitters is Kyle Schwarber. Schwarber spent a lot of time with AJ's Cubbies. He's been with the Phillies the last few years. I think he bounced around Washington and Boston. And if memory serves right, I think coming off that pandemic year, the Twins had some interest, or at least there was a reckless speculation kind of banning those two about, which I would have been all for, because I love Kyle Schwarber. I think the 3 true outcomes, which we'll get into here, I'll throw you some numbers. There are some comparables here to Schwarber. So let's just look at the last season for both of these individuals. Okay. So 3 true outcomes: the home run, the strikeout, the walk. It's been those are the 3 things that baseball has maybe leaned too heavily into, but regardless, 3 true outcomes. Kyle Schwarber last year was a 49% 3 true outcome hitter, meaning every plate appearance he had, 49% of them ended in one of those 3. Matt Wallner in 2024, a 50.6. So more than half of his plate appearances ended in a home run, a walk, or a strikeout. And 2 of these guys also love to have high exit velos. They hit the ball hard. 3 true outcomes, Age. I mean, I know you've seen some Matt Wallner over the last few years from afar. I know you had a lot of times with Schwarber, who has definitely leaned heavier into the 3 true outcomes now as opposed to maybe his Cub days. But there's still some parallels there. So what do you think? Do we think Matt Wallner is a 2.0 version of Kyle Schwarber?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of stats and underlying stuff that can suggest that. I mean, neither of them, I think, tread closely to the Adam Dunn, I hate to run 3 true outcomes that we saw with his time in the big leagues. But these guys have shown they like to hit the ball hard. And when they don't, guess what? They're either going to walk because the pitcher's probably just not going to find the zone, or they're going to walk straight back to the dugout. When you look at what Kyle Schwarber did since being drafted 4th overall, and to put it in perspective for Twins fans, drafted 1 pick higher than the Twins drafting Nick Gordon.
That was a mess.
That was a mess. A lot of. If it makes you feel any better, the first overall pick that year didn't even sign with the Astros. So who cares? You win some, lose some. Kyle Schwarber brings a lot of, I will say, like, it's excitement, because when there's guys on base, pitchers are scared. Like when he makes contact with the ball, it more than likely is going to find grass or somewhere over a fence. When you look at his BABIP, which I love as one of a stat that I think a lot of people just don't value as highly as it should, which is batting average on balls in play. Last year, sure, it wasn't as good as it maybe could have been in past years. I'm trying to go BABIP for Baseball References bugging up on me now. But the point is, it was like 369, if my memory serves me correct, for the brief research I was doing before the show. Matt Wallner last year, 389 for BABIP. When he's putting the bat on ball, he is finding grass. He is driving play. He's keeping runners on base paths, if not scoring them. In one season that I was looking at that kind of mimics each other, Matt Wallner's most recent season, going back to Kyle Schwarber's first year, actually post Cubs era, when he signed with I want to say it was the Washington Nationals. Right? Yeah, then he was traded mid-season, whatever. It was an all-star season for Schwarber, his first all-star season. But he had very similar stats when it comes to what Matt Wallner was doing last year. Batting average-wise, on pace-wise, when you look at a full 162-game season when it comes to home runs, RBIs, OPS plus, very similar. The key thing here is, at that time, Kyle Schwarber was 28 years old. Matt Wallner, last season, 26. Mm-hmm. All of the key numbers that you look at, Matt Wallner exceeds, and usually in the important ones has better numbers when it comes to just putting the ball in play. Like the strikeout rate is lower. The extra base hits higher, OPS higher, slugging higher. Everything seems to be trending in a better direction. He's younger. And when it comes to putting a guy like that in the leadoff position, I mean, the old timey, I think you need your choking up, speedy Ricky Henderson types to lay down a bunt and hustle over to first. I think those days are almost gone, and managers and stat guys more in particular are kind of looking at we just want to get a guy who can hit the ball hard up, because first, also, if it's a 3 true outcome, if it's a home run, that's great. But if it's a ground ball type of situation where they're not, I guess, falling into those 3, you're going to have half of those at bats almost be a negative at times when there is a runner on first. All of a sudden, that three spot hitter hits into a double play, you just ruin the inning. So it is something that I think we've seen the baseball world kind of trend more towards now. So it's unconventional only until it's not. But Matt Wallner, I mean, it's an exciting name to see at the top of a lineup card, I think.
I think the couple differences here between Wallner and I guess Schwarber, if you want to compare both of them, which is what we're kind of doing. Number one, Wallner actually moves a lot better. He is in the 55th percentile in terms of speed. So you look at him, like if you just saw him in person, whether you're at a game or you're looking at his baseball reference page of 6'4", 220. I mean, he's a pretty large dude, but he moves a lot quicker than you would think by just looking at him. So the speed factor there actually is some speed factor to his game. I also believe his fielding, like Schwarber at this point is a glorified DH and cross your fingers and left, but like Wallner has actually a cannon of an arm. He's going to be playing right field this year, most likely, and more times than not. He might mix it in some left sometimes. Hell, and he also might DH. I wouldn't be shocked by that either. But his fielding and his speed are up on someone like Schwarber, who was never really known for either of those two things. And then with Matt, he's only put together 2 half seasons of really good numbers. I mean, if you look at an OPS plus wise, like, take away the games played in the name. If I told you this guy had 149 OPS plus and 138 OPS plus the last 2 seasons, you'd think, oh, this must be like a perennial all-star, a 6 WAR type of guy, someone maybe getting MVP votes at that rate. The problem is last year he got off to that horrendous start, had to go fix his swing and his entire mechanics in the minors, comes back up, and was the Twins' best hitter from basically late July through the end of the year. And then in 2023, he had also a delayed called up, gets called up, and basically becomes a lefty masher too. So can he do it over the course of 162 games is the bigger question. And he's also a platoon happy player where he hasn't gotten a lot of run against lefties. We'll see if this changes, but he's mostly a heavy platoon splits type of dude where he can mash righties but hasn't had the opportunity to hit lefties. So I think there is some comparableness here between both Schwarber and Matt Wallner. And even though it's unconventional, it does give Rocco Baldelli the freedom to put a lefty at the top of the order and still build out, your righty mashers and switch hitters and other lefties like Trevor Larnach into a pretty damn good lineup.
Yeah, and the defensive capabilities there is something. I'm glad you brought that up because Schwarber is, sometimes is a headache for managers because when you look at the defensive WAR specifically through 3 seasons for Matt Wallner, -1. That's it. That's essentially a season for Kyle Schwarber. So you have you have a lot more capability, and like he's not as big of a liability out there. Is he a vacuum? Is he a Kevin Kiermaier at times tracking down things in the outfield? Not by any means. But at least he's out there and you're like, that guy looks competent defensively. And that's really all you need to ask when you're going to get the offense you're expecting from these numbers we were discussing at the plate. And plus you can kind of hide him depending on the day. Do you want, is it going to be a lefty heavy lineup? Okay. You throw him in left field instead. He'll probably get the occasional sliced foul ball, sent out there into the outfield. But it allows Rocco Baldelli to not have that headache of like, these guys, we know it's a bullpen day. Potentially there's going to be a lot of balls hit to the outfield. Do I really want him in the lineup? Do I want to go with somebody maybe a little more defensively capable? He's going to be fine. And yeah, the speed thing is something that I think a lot of people do forget about. He can move. Like the phrase that goes around my family when discussing sports is like, it's a horse with legs. And I know you're going to think about it as if like it's a big chunk of meat, but he's also on the move. Like he's also able to get out there and gallop a little bit. So, I do like that Matt Wallner, especially, and that's the thing too. When Kyle Schwarber got on base, it's like, okay, if you have, with his days with the Nationals, you have Trey Turner maybe batting behind him. If he hits one to the gap, Trey Turner might be right on his butt come third base. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. But Matt Wallner, he gets out there, he's going to keep his pace, and he'll probably be able to go, if a ball's hit correctly at the right field, probably first to home if needed, because he's got that speed behind him. So it is a nice little package that you do have and allows whoever it is behind him to not really think too much on the manager's behalf. So it's a nice little problem that you don't have to worry about if you're Rocco Baldelli.
So if you also, and I'm going to put this up for the visual audience on our YouTube channel, for our audio audience, I'll do my absolute best to explain this. But for a visual audience, if you take, this is Kyle Schwarber, what you're looking at, his Baseball Savant page. So there's a bunch of numbers here from average exit velocity, barrel rate, hard hit percentage, WOBA, chase percentage, walk percentage, and you see all these numbers. And then on the right side, you see 96, 94, 97. That means he's in the 96th percentile, the 94th percentile of Major League Baseball in these categories. So when he hits the ball, homeboy hits the ball very, very hard. And actually, even though he strikes out a lot, you'll see that chase percentage, which is in the 93rd percentile. That's good. That actually means even though he might be swinging and missing a lot, he is not chasing pitches out of the zone that would prevent him from obviously, squaring up a ball. And if you look at it compared to Matt Wallner, now Matt didn't have as many games played, but you can still see some of these percentiles that you'll see on the YouTube screen. He didn't qualify to get all the percentiles, but you can see where the redness is in terms of the similarities to Kyle Schwarber. And when you look at the average exit velocity, the barrel rate, the hard hit percentage, the bat speed, these are all in the 90 percentile, most likely, if you can assume. So this is a total comparable type of player. I think there actually still might be maybe a more complete hitter in here, and maybe even just a better athlete, which is crazy because I still think Kyle Schwarber's, to AJ's point, he's an all-star. He fits the mold of a really good offensive team in Philadelphia. So it's not to discredit Kyle Schwarber. I think he's a special player too. But this unconventional nature, I think he spent some time with the Cubs. Your Juan Pierres, who I loved growing up, like your Luis Castillos, who Twins fans remember, the Nick Puntos. That leadoff hitter is dead, essentially, in today's baseball, and it's been replaced with big power hitters. Kyle Schwarber. I mean, go look at the Dodgers lineup. Now, I know that's basically 27 Yankees type leap, but you look at that lineup 1 through 9. I mean, they have guys there that are just mashing at the top. So I think Matt Wallner, opening day hitter, and especially mostly against right-handed pitchers, which they'll get Sonny Gray, all things considered, on opening day against St. Louis. There's a path where Matt Wallner is your opening day leadoff hitter in 2025.
And I mean, stats and everything are one thing. On the other hand, though, you do have to think about, and we really haven't seen Matt Wallner have a chance to maybe prove this yet in a postseason setting. But it seems like Kyle Schwarber is a guy that rises to those bigger occasions. Yeah. When there's bottom of the ninth, 2 down, and they need to hit something over the fence or just hit something to the gap, he seems like he wants that plate appearance. If you go back to the Cubs shaking that curse off with 108 years, he tore his ACL earlier that season, comes back in the middle of the postseason run. And the guy, like, you would have thought that he was playing since like mid-August, just taking key at bats. And granted, there was a lot of strikeouts in there too, but when he did connect, there were big moments that I know Cubs fans such as myself like remember. And when you look at what he's done with the Phillies, what he's done, and granted, his time with the Nationals and Red Sox maybe didn't end with the most prestigious of times, but what he's done with Philadelphia, you see that where when healthy, Bryce Harper in the lineup, you go from one guy to the other, and it's like there's really not a spot that's allowing a pitcher to breathe because both those guys are big game players. They have that mentality of I dare you to throw a fastball past me. I would love to see you even try that. Matt Wallner, we need to see if he has those intangibles, and that's that stuff off the field that a lot of people talk about. You can't really measure that statistically, but he's still young. He's 20. I want to say 27 coming into this season. In terms of baseball, that is incredibly young. So he's got all of his career ahead of him. And this Twins team, the way you look at how things are shaking up in that AL Central, I know last year there was predictions that they were probably going to, in a sense, run away with it at times, but based on additions and whatnot, this year, once again, they're poised and I think predicted to be near, if not at the top, and win that division, depending on who you're talking to. But can he attach himself to kind of the mindset we've seen out of guys like Royce Lewis, be under the wing of a Carlos Correa or Byron Buxton, who have been in those moments before, especially Carlos Correa with his time in Houston. I mean, that's a guy where you need to, almost follow footstep after footstep walking out of the dugout. So we'll have to see about that. But when you look at on paper at the statistics, there's a very comparable argument that it's a 2.0 situation with Kyle Schwarber, but maybe you take away some of the offensive talent, you push it towards defensively, and a better athlete is probably there.
Yeah, Schwarber, by the way, AJ's point about postseason numbers, 21 home runs in 69 career playoff games for Schwarber. He has a 900 OPS. He had a rough go of it in Philadelphia's NLDS run last year, just 2 hits and 16 at-bats, one of them being a home run. But yeah, he's been a postseason hitter. Matt didn't have the best playoff run when the Twins did snap their curse at the end of 2023. But I think there's a good hitter in there, and I'm curious to see where he does fall. It might be tracking towards leadoff hitter. They might just be showing us their cards right now, and if not, we'll still probably see him playing an integral role in the Twins offense. Hit the like button, subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show. Appreciate you guys. A couple other things here. From spring training, I saw Royce Lewis has been working with Michael Kadire at third base. Now, Michael, former Twins great and someone who played like a bajillion different positions before really finding a solid home in right field, ironically enough. I think he came up as a shortstop, bounced around and played everywhere, played at first base near the end of his career after he left the Twins. But Royce, who has had some troubles with throwing more than anything, it's been his arm that has kind of plagued him. And last year defensively, he even acknowledged that it's easier for him to get up as a hitter, and when you're rehabbing those injuries, it's easier to sit there and watch BP and sit there in the cage and do these things to make yourself a better hitter. But his defense kind of took a little bit of a slide last season. This year, obviously trying to make sure that is really honed in. There was talk about, does he get time at second base this season? And it looks like they want to give him as much time, if not all the time, at third base and just keep him comfortable where he's not shifting around unorthodox-like. And Royce working on some stuff at third base age. If he becomes a well-rounded fielder, you're talking about left side of the diamond, health provided with these two, and Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis as literally one of the best left sides in all of baseball.
And you know how good both of them can be. I mean, Carlos Correa, how many times last season when healthy did we say, wow, he just saved a run. He just saved something from, they're playing on a slight shift to roll into the gap. He is tremendous there. And Royce Lewis has shown that he can also be a very, very good fielder. He's got a very good arm. He's accurate with those throws. And from that hot corner at third base, I mean, some people just aren't built for that. When you look at some of the greats recently, like Manny Machado, as much as you may not like him as like a player, he gets under your skin, but he just makes plays. He finds ways to make plays because of his athleticism, his defensive IQ. It's certain setup and then tracking the ball and reaction time. Royce Lewis, he seems to have some of those qualities, and I don't want to say that he's going to be the next Manny Machado at third base, but when it comes to what he potentially has, there's some version of that in there if we're going to stay with the comparison trope today. We already know how good he can be at the plate. This is a guy that we've seen hit massive home runs and taking away from what Matt Wallner, maybe we said, struggled with in the postseason. Royce Lewis rose to the occasion. So it's something where if he's healthy, having him comfortable there, that left side of the diamond, I mean, it makes it really easy because also, if you think about it, how many the ball seems to, in my mind, at least, track to that side of the field more often than it does to that right side of the infield. So, yeah, I mean, it's especially to have two guys that can link up for, you hit the third, you're going to have an easy transition from glove to hand for setting up that potential double play. It just takes a lot of weight, I think, off of pitcher to know too, I can go inside against this righty. I can go inside against this righty without thinking, okay, I don't have to worry about getting it too inside. And all of a sudden now my guy just can't field the ball. He's great at the plate, but boy, he's just a bag of potatoes out there at third. Hopefully it hits him in the chest and he can knock it down. Having those two guys healthy is very, very important to how the Twins are probably going to start this year. So
I believe probably my favorite quote from Rocco last year when I asked him about pull side ground balls and that type of stuff, I believe he referred to it as baseball death. That's what a pull side ground ball is, whether you're a lefty or righty, and you pull side ground ball, baseball death. You're beating that ball into the ground. And then to your point, though, got to have the good defensive fielders. And hopefully Royce is, making those significant strides. A few other just kind of pitching notes here. It really does feel like Chris Paddock, even though his name has come up as a trade candidate, they're going to stick with him in the rotation for as long as possible. Maybe a deal does come to fruition even before opening day. I don't know if that's the case, but they're valuing their depth in AAA with guys like Zebby Matthews, who looks great throughout the first early on starts of spring. He's throwing hard and having high velocity, and obviously he's someone that has impeccable control, but still a long shot to be in with the Twins pending injuries. And then guys like Simeon Woods Richardson, David Festa, we'll see who kind of wins that fifth battle for to close out that starting rotation. But I don't think even though Chris Paddock might not be your best option in the starting rotation long term, you need as many starting pitchers as possible, which the Twins had to learn kind of the hard way once they lost Joe Ryan last season. They obviously lost Chris Paddock last year, and that's when Zebby had to make starts from high A because they were literally out of pitching options. So even though Zebby's impressing, I would be pretty surprised if Chris Paddock is not in this opening day rotation either. There's not a lot of camp battles going on, but that is one of them to kind of watch as the back end of the starting rotation.
Yeah, and you may want some sort of competition just to fuel a fire, see if somebody can push themselves to a different level. But at the same time, we saw the highs and lows of Chris Paddock last season. And the thing is, when he's on, the guy is really, really good. He's a guy that can go out there, really attack a hitter. I'll spin this back at you though. Right now, everybody's healthy. Where do you feel this bullpen, or not the bullpen, but this starting rotation maybe ranks among not just the AL Central, but the entire AL? Do you feel like it's a middle of the pack? Because when you look at some other teams, it's obviously NL, but the Dodgers, that's how are you supposed to compete with that? When you look at the Yankees, that's just top to bottom, 1 through 5. It's that is an incredible rotation of pitchers. The Twins, you can, I think, acknowledge fairly, there's a drop off compared to some other teams. Where do you feel they are compared to the other 15 or so teams?
I think it's pretty solid. I think they're firmly in the top third of baseball, and definitely maybe borderline the fifth top 5 rotation in the NAL. I mean, if
Mhm.
Seattle's your one, because like Seattle, for God's sakes, if you're a Mariners fan, I'm so sorry that you've had this electric elite pitching staff for 3 years and you just can't find your offense. I mean, that's the frustrating part. I think 1 through 3, just depth wise, and even just toe to toe, tail of the tape. If you stacked a 1-2-3 against Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, I like the chances over a 3-game series there. You know, Pablo took kind of a half step backwards last year and was figuring out some stuff, but in the second half looked more like the Pablo we know. Joe Ryan was having a career year. He might have been the Twins' best starting pitcher until a tricep injury kind of limited him. And it sounds like he's throwing and in good spots and should be totally a go for the time opening day rolls around. And then Bailey Ober has like quietly turned into one of the most effective pitchers in baseball, and I feel like we don't talk about it enough. I think that's what we'll do on Thursday is just kind of project what this starting rotation looks like, because I was looking at this I think earlier this weekend, just by ERA and WHIP, Bailey Ober has the best ERA and WHIP on this team over the last 3 years, which is kind of crazy to think about with a rotation that has Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan in it. So I think effectiveness and ranking wise, it's still one of the better starting rotations in baseball. But yeah, you're one injury away. If they lost Pablo or if Joe Ryan really isn't ready, then everyone gets bumped up. It's the same reason why you always ask for starting pitching at the deadline, because it just slots everyone down and makes the pressure that much a little easier. But I think it's still firmly one of the better starting rotations in baseball.
I love your point about Ober. I think maybe it's just like market, but if he was wearing pinstripes,
yeah,
Bailey Ober would be considered like one of the premier pitchers in baseball. Like it's incredible how good of a year he had and how quiet it felt like everybody was about it. Like he just kind of goes out there. He's like an assassin. He's like a serial killer. He goes out there, he just does his work, and he just goes home, sits in his bland apartment with his white walls. There's no pictures hanging on the wall. He just puts on like whatever PBS programming he wants. He sits there, has a bowl of cereal, and goes to bed, wakes up, does it the next day, just goes to work. That's where we'll save it, I'm sure, because you're gonna talk about it more later this week on the Twin Show. But 1 through 3, I think, is when healthy, really, really solid. But then you're gonna have Woods Richardson and Chris Paddock or Festa. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to step up, and granted, it's more about just like winning that matchup. All you have to do is just win that matchup. Put your team in a position where you don't have to go out. You're not asking for 5 Cy Young guys on the mound. You're asking for just go out and be as good as you can. Put yourself your team in a position where through the first like 5-6 innings, are you still in a chance to like win this game? That's really all I think Twins fans are asking for.
Yeah, Bailey Ober almost has a sub-1 WHIP in his last 3 seasons, which is nuts. I mean, he's 6'9", 200 plus. He's a mammoth of a human being. To your point, if he was in a large market, there'd just be marketing him a little differently. He'd definitely be talked about a little bit more. They're fortunate, I think, to have, when that's your 3, that's a pretty solid starting point. And most teams would kill to have that as a 3 in their starting rotation. Hey, hit the like button, subscribe button. I appreciate everyone that has supported the SKOR North Twins Show. We'll be pumping out some more extra innings episodes throughout spring training. We'll have full shows on Thursday. We'll have a future announcement on kind of additions to the show too going forward for the regular season, which we're excited about. So appreciate that. Hit the like button, subscribe button. This is SKOR North Twins Show Extra Innings, and we'll be back at you soon.